All right, folks, thanks for coming out. We are happy to have you out here this August with the hazards of navigating out to Central aside. This month, this is our third to last meeting this month. We'll talk more about that, but we are honored to have Anthony, who states he doesn't care how his last name is pronounced, but I believe it's Nedolast.
Yeah.
Talking about empowered dev, BA, and QA with AI, which is a bit of a mouthful, but I understand it to be around sort of practical uses of AI, real-world stories from a team that has successfully achieved a lot of the things with the hype and the pitfalls that fall into that as well. So very cool with that. If you have a Windows phone, kudos to you. I think I might have just thrown mine away just last month. But whatever device you're using, please use it responsibly if you're here, just so we can stream and Anthony's demos don't fall flat on their faces. But we appreciate you. You can find us on Meetup. It's a great way of letting us know how much pizza we should order. And especially if you do that before the event, that's very helpful. But even if you don't, that's okay. Come join us. We meet the fourth Thursday of every month from January to October because November and December are a little busy at the end of the month. That's okay. Our organizers are Alan over here managing our AV and speaking next month. I am Matthew Hope Eland. If you don't know me, I do a lot of weird things and wear funny clothing. Sam Gomez apparently cares about his kids, so he's out there with the parent-teacher conference tonight, but he's awesome. And then Sarah Almost Otworth over there is running a lot of socials for us and doing a lot of cool stuff that we just don't have capacity for, so thank you, Sarah. We are near the end of 2026. I forgot to bold this week here, but we got 2 sessions left. I have question, because I was too lazy to ask Alan in advance. But Alan will be talking next month about local LLMs and getting the most bang for your buck there, setting that stuff up effectively, figuring out good hardware, stuff like that. Some really topical stuff as we all work to build evil AI agents in our basements, which is certainly what I do with my time when I'm not playing with puppies. Following that, I will be giving some version of talk in our last meeting of the year, talking about what's new in .NET as we have our releases every fall. But I'm also probably going to lean a little bit into how do we make sure that our .NET, that the code that we're writing in C# is quality code that doesn't break, and how do we make sure our agents are writing quality code. And probably kind of combine a bit of these 2 topics together. There is an asterisk with this because A, I haven't written the talk yet, and B, I don't know what, if anything, will be accepted at CodeMash, and that might impact what I'm submitting to what I'll be giving here. So this is another little plug I don't have a slide for, but the call for presenters at CodeMash is ending at the end of this month, so you got basically this weekend to get your talks in. You can submit up to 10, and then they'll review them the first 3 weeks or so of September and get back to you. Right now I've submitted a total of 0, so I need to get on that. But just a little plug for those of you with talks, such as Anthony. So cool beans there. You can find us on YouTube. If you are watching us on YouTube right now, you've done a good job, so good job to you. But we can also find past topics of interest there and watch us on 3 times playback speed if you want. We are also on Twitter and LinkedIn. Sarah over there is one of our major contributors. Would be nice to get more stuff on there. And then we do have a Discord group, which we have some cool stuff on there. Matt posts a lot of cool stuff there, too. Sponsors, thank you, Central Insurance. We appreciate you for the wonderful space and for the wonderful pizza every month. So that's really cool. And .NET Foundation is not here, but they're here in our hearts because they pay for our meetup dues. Which, yeah, we're glad they do that. So, who here is hiring for anybody? Matt over at Central Insurance, what are you guys hiring for?
I checked earlier this week. I think we have a couple of senior positions open. So pretty much like everyone else, unfortunately, mostly hiring seniors, but we do have a couple senior positions.
So Central Insurance is hiring senior, and you guys do not .NET.
Yes.
Anthony, what are you looking for?
Temporary senior for basically the rest of the calendar year.
Okay.
.NET React.
Okay. .NET React contract for the rest of 2026.
Yep.
Cool. Leading Edge is looking for either contract or full-time senior .NET, senior Java. So if any of that interests you, I don't know, find us on Discord and or LinkedIn and just chat with us, and we'll be happy to connect you. House rules, I mean, you're here, you understand them, you all got your pizza, you all got your drinks, so that's cool. If you need a bathroom, go under the stairs. Don't go under the stairs, but keep going past under the stairs, take a left, and then keep taking a left until you find the boys and girls rooms. So with that, I'm going to get out of here and rest my legs and drink my drink and let Anthony take it away with Empowered Dev, BA, and QA with AI. So
Great.
thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, absolutely. So while I'm getting switched over here, quick audience poll question. Who's using AI? Oh, no shocker there. Who's using it well? Oh, that's awesome. Good results. Better question. Who knows somebody who isn't using it well? Okay, everybody's hand went up that time. So we're going to get this in playback mode here.
That's a great question.
Drum roll.
We see Dragonfly.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. So I have settled on focusing on kind of giving you a little bit of a less technical talk and more of a human talk, kind of the journey that my team has taken adopting AI. A little bit about me. I'm a lifelong technology enthusiast. Ever since I can remember, I've been interested in technology. It doesn't matter when it was. I've always been passionate about things that are technology related that help make humanity better. I studied computer science and engineering at Ohio State, and I was a Microsoft intern back in, 2005. It's hard to say that without putting like a 10 or a 20 on the year. And I'm really passionate about solving real problems with software for real people. To me, it's a means to an end, much more than just something cool to do. A little bit about my team. So adoption of anything, AI included, is really a team sport. My team that I'm working with is 18 people. We've got about 10 engineers, 4 focused on QA, 2 business analysts, and 2 managers on the team. So any of you that work in a multidisciplinary team know that it takes everybody to get something from an idea to done. So a lot of what we talk about with AI tends to focus on that first group, the engineers, and how they're solving problems. I've recognized that I need to focus on how we can empower all the roles to take advantage of this technology. A little bit about what we do. We have 7 commercial software products that we maintain for the healthcare industry. So our space has a little bit more regulation and concern over privacy, so I can give you a little bit of that aspect of things today and how we've journeyed through dealing with the trust issues with AI. We've got several million lines of code across those projects. They're a mix of .NET, Node, and some other tech that I really don't want to think about. So I want to start with part 1 of my talk, is just take you on the journey of what we've done for AI adoption on my team. This is something that I think we've all been through, so it'll just help give some background of where we've come from and the journey we've taken. As then we look at part 2, we'll talk about the roles and how AI has benefited and maybe some of the pitfalls with each role. And then part 3, we'll talk about maybe some things that will help you in your quest and your team's quest with adoption. And really, when we think about this timeline, for me, it goes all the way back to the beginning of when these things started to become newsworthy. I was really interested in the early transformers. I wanted to take place or to take part in the GPT-2 era, but when it was just kind of a private test experience. They didn't accept my application, but the day that GPT-3 was available as an API, even before ChatGPT, I signed up. I saw the power of this and how it could be used. And not to brag, but I think that all adoption journeys just start with one person who is relentless and curious about what it is that we're looking at. So in my story, that was me. We started to pull it into the team a little bit later in 2023. GitHub Copilot was an easy first win for us because everybody on my team already had their Copilot, or not their Copilot, sorry, their GitHub user license. We had an enterprise agreement. It was really a simple uplift to say, let's turn this on for everybody. So it was very frictionless, and sometimes that's the easiest way to start adoption with anything, is to reduce the barriers there is to learning. So everybody was used to IntelliSense at that time. Really, what came first with the completion AI was a natural extension of that for a lot of people. So that was a lot of the team member on the engineering side, first introduction to AI. But then, unfortunately, it all stopped. As we were a healthcare company, there were concerns from executives and leaders over what this generative AI thing meant for our data, our customers' data, etc. So they had raised these concerns and basically had IT block all generative AI, at the network level. So Copilot died, ChatGPT died, no more, game over. I told my boss, if you're going to kill AI, I need to hire an assistant, because all the things that I've been doing, the release notes for the 6 products at the time, the 90+ compliance tasks that I was personally taking care of, all of the stakeholder updates, all of those things at that time I had already been using AI for. So between ChatGPT and then let alone the productivity loss of Copilot going away, it was a major issue. So that conversation really spurred okay, how do we move forward? What is the process we're going to use to get this back? Because we're not taking Anthony's toy away. We're taking away real productive capacity when we say we can't use AI. So that was kind of a turning point for governance in the organization. We kind of sat down and said, how do we actually navigate this and make sure we're doing it right? I think that the governance topic itself is always very cloudy and very hard to navigate. And one of the things that I learned is you just have to get started. You got to bring the people to the table that are necessary to move forward for that. So for us, it was our legal team, our IT team, and the people who want to get the work done at the end of the day, like in my case, me. Kind of once everybody had a seat at the table, we could sit down and have a conversation about what the rules were that we needed to, be able to navigate, and the certainties that we had to have, and the risks we needed to mitigate. So through that process, I took Copilot, GitHub Copilot, through kind of the governance model as we were working it out, kind of offering my time to help, basically test out this governance process. So that was a really good way that while I was disappointed that this tool had been taken away, I gave back to the process by trying to use this thing that we had that had some measurable value to try to test the process out. We then went back for ChatGPT, and at that point in time asked IT to get an enterprise agreement set up, because then that enterprise agreement gives you conditions like they won't train on your data, and those things were very important to the business. So kind of through those first two, we started then to actually get in a rhythm now where we do have a good governance process. And so through that, we had been test driving pretty much everything. I think a lot of you here probably have tested a lot of different things. You're here on a weeknight, your own time trying to learn. So you can probably relate to the fact that we went out and we tried Cursor, Devin, Windsurf, Anthropic, anything else really that the team members wanted to. They were downloading it at home and trying it. And so by the time that governance model had been unlocked, we had an idea of what we wanted next. And so as a team, we settled on Devin and Anthropic that we wanted to bring in this mix, in addition to GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT. So we walked through the process, and I'll tell you a little bit more about those when we get to the roles later on. But really, once those doors opened back up, we were able to start really bringing AI into our process and feeling comfortable about it, that we've navigated it right. So the next tool that I alluded to was Devin. Copilot was initially very easy because it was already something we had an enterprise agreement for. So Devin kind of went outside of that. But what I did for Devin was I gave a demo where I basically took a work item from our backlog and I asked Devin to go work on it, because the model was different at the time. Devin was being given a lot of runway just to go run and do things. And to other people, that was a little bit kind of scary, right? Like, Where's the human in the loop? Well, so, as the process of kind of pitching this, I demoed it solving a ticket that, we had estimated would have taken days to do, or, it might have been weeks, I don't remember. But it was like a really clunky UI, and, kind of live while I'm talking about the pros and cons, Devin's over there and builds a drag and drop user interface for this thing that was just really clunky in the software. And it was incredibly powerful because I think it let my boss and boss's boss see that this thing actually does amazing things. So, it's really easy for people to argue with an idea. It's really hard for them to argue with an actual live piece of software that just got produced in front of their eyes. So we got Devin, and I think that the piece that really Devin starts to do for us is moves us from this prompting, this very manual kind of copy and paste stuff into ChatGPT or what. This is when we started to shift from that manual prompting to more delegation to AI. And then I should have moved to this slide a minute ago, but it really triggered kind of a theme then with executives. Like, they started to hear about other companies using AI, and they suddenly a little bit of FOMO, right? They're afraid that they're going to miss out and that our competitors are going to pass us up. So kind of that tide was coming where all the companies are starting to say, oh, we're replacing humans with AI. So that was kind of a next level of motivation for the company to help move us along so that we could finally get Claude Code and round out our tool set. So as we think about what I've been doing for adoption, this is really the tool set that my team currently has available to them. And so through the set of this, we found different things that work and different areas where they add value. And as we think about kind of that ladder that I alluded to of where we're starting to delegate, Copilot was saving us minutes a day. And it was very inexpensive when it rolled out, right? So it was easy to justify. Devin, got to a place where we're saving hours per day with what we're doing with it. But kind of as we've grown the ladder, and we'll talk about this little asterisk later, we've grown this ladder where we are now really, really in a game changer where I can now report back how many headcount, like FTEs worth of extra capacity we have because of AI at the end of the day. And some of this is not just a natural process. It takes a lot of work. As I was kind of putting slides together for this and got up to 38 slides, I'm like, I probably have 38 more slides that I could make to describe all the steps we went through and the trials and the tribulations of it. So moving on to the main part of what I want to share is how each of the roles on my team uses AI and what we're finding the pitfalls of them. All of these roles are essential in our process and probably in your process too. Seldomly is there just a developer writing code and putting it in production and saying they're done, unless it's a kind of solo founder type setup. So in our case, we have very rigid SDLC we've got to follow for a very good reason, right? We want to pass our SOC 2 audits. We want our customers to not be angry with us that the software doesn't work when they need to see a patient or otherwise. So developers tend to be where we think about AI, but business analysts, I would think, actually has some of the most impact that we've found with AI so far. And then our quality engineers and our quality analysts can find a lot of benefit from it too. So as we look at this spectrum for what it looks like to us for a developer, and this probably relates to everybody in here, really starting out kind of at tier 1 with AI of using it for fancy autocomplete. It's great at doing fairly obvious tests where for simple methods. It's really good at helping you with the boilerplate as you type, and that's great because we all hate boilerplate, right? We then learn to prompt manually and how to prompt well, and that's a very important skill that we have to learn on the adoption journey in all the roles. And then next you start building knowledge. What conventions, what documents, what markdown files make sense, which ones actually get in the way and cost you more tokens. We start connecting tools, right? We connect to DevOps or we connect to Jira. We start now moving up to delegation where I can tell it, hey, go work on this ticket, or even better yet, set up a loop, and it just looks for tickets that it gets assigned and starts running through them. So everyone climbs this ladder at a different pace. And when you're on a team and you want the team to succeed and work together well, it's important to be able to kind of paint the picture for everyone to know, what it is that we're going for, laying out the vision of, where do I see us? So, at the start of this year, I really painted this delegation picture as where I want to be at the end of 2026. At that time, I had some folks that I would consider to be the trailblazers, off running really Wild West type stuff with AI, causing problems. We had some who were still, maybe down here, right? They're doing the same thing over and over again every day, but they're copy and pasting that prompt in a Word document or something like that. So that was part of the journey that was a little bit, when you're trying to foster adoption, you learn that you got to meet people where they are and show them where they need to go and help them build it. So we're talking about how do we help them climb that ladder, and some of the risks along the way that they see that you're all probably familiar with, or dealing with and looking out for these things. So making sure that developers are looking out for hallucinated APIs. Now, when we move to delegation, that's really easy to catch for because you expect AI to build the software, right? And if the API doesn't exist or the method call doesn't exist, it should catch it, it should fix it. So some of that's getting fixed, right, with the wraparound process around how you want AI to work, but it's still a real risk that it's inventing things with total confidence, and you don't know unless you're in the loop to see it. Another real thing for us is that it's still 70 or 80% solved, but the last 20 to 30% is still really hard a lot of times, especially when we're dealing with integrations and interoperability, which in healthcare is a significant thing that we do. That you absolutely have to make sure that there's human in the loop for all of these things, and that we know even if we think AI is going to go fast with it, if it doesn't, there's still going to be a lot of time on task to get those things done. Like the conversation out, with pizza beforehand, we might want to or tend to try to point things lower because we think it's going to go faster or AI is going to help with that complexity. But the reality is there's still a very good chance that somebody, a senior, is going to have to step in and fix a wild problem with something. And the other thing that is difficult is when you're staring at a PR, whether it's from another developer or whether it's from AI. If there's a lot of code there, it's hard to review, right? It's the code review paradox, except now it's flying at you even faster, and you feel like your time's being spent just doing code reviews. So that was something we had to navigate, and the first tendency was to throw a bunch of work at AI and then start sifting through it, but you get burned out fast. So you've got to balance the workload a little bit to make sure that we're not just becoming code reviewers anymore, because that's not a job anybody wants to stick in for a long time. And then I believe in education and helping train the next generation of the workforce. So one of the things that we've had, issues navigating is our juniors. And the term junior might, throw that around. It might not be the greatest term, but our entry level or our inexperienced team members need to learn what they need to learn to make good decisions. And if AI is doing a lot of the things that we've all done to learn, what's their chance to learn, right? How do we structure that? So we've had to focus a lot on, for our lower level team members, making sure that things like understanding the engineering disciplines, the code and stuff, those things are so important as foundations that we coach them to change the way that they prompt. So instead of just asking AI to solve a problem, have AI guide you to solve the problem so that you learn this process along the way rather than just AI doing it and you taking it for granted. So just structuring, in some ways it might feel a little bit weird to be the AI's, hands on the keyboard, but we've all had that experience probably as we've come up the career ladder where someone's telling us what to do, how to do it, and we learn from that, right?
So I found that often when I'm working in new technologies that I didn't touch before, such as VS Code integrations, things like that. Even though I'm a senior, I know a lot of stuff. It's still walk me through this. What are my
Exactly.
choices here? What are the alternatives? And it can be an effective teacher that still hallucinates.
Well, and sometimes those lessons are there to teach us, right, how to troubleshoot things. That's what I'll say. So, teaching them how to prompt to get good, and teaching them how those prompts can teach them. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but there's almost a meta skill there for learning with AI. I tried not to focus too much on dev stuff because most of you in the room probably have experience with that. But where, to me, AI has gotten to be some of the most interesting and most fruitful as we've turned our business analysts loose with it. So given the right on-ramp, I think a BA can ship software, maybe not everything, but we can elevate that role now. Instead of just helping them get done more stuff, we have opened a door that they can have a bigger hand in this value stream. So I had an interesting idea and for trying to drive adoption. In January, one of the things I said was, I am giving everyone on the team a mission impossible. Take 2 or 3 hours this week and try something that you don't think you can do. Partner with AI and see if you can make it happen. One of my business analysts took me up on it, and there was a conference we went to last October, and a lot of customers said, I have this particular problem with this data set that I need to analyze, and I need to know, it's like a 100 megabyte file. I don't have people that are data people. I need help dealing with this. And this idea was in our backlog. It was going to be months or maybe years before we got to it because it was just kind of a very vague idea at the time. But my business analyst knew the industry and knew where things were going and said, you know what, I really want to try to solve this problem. So I took a little bit of time, that Friday, sat down and set up with Devin kind of a shell project, right? Because this business analyst doesn't have experience like picking a stack or those type of things. Gave Devin our code conventions, our standards, those kind of things, kind of put it all in one repo, just so it would be super easy to say, here's your template project. Now you can go build whatever you want. Just tell Devin to start from this template project and build a new project. So my business analyst sat down with it, and a couple hours over a couple days later, she comes back and says, here's a demo. Like, let me show you what I built. And it was a really cool user interface where the user could drag and drop this file in. It would process it. It would persist it to a database. And now they could slice and dice it, do the analysis. They could put the reviews that they wanted to do in. And then it'd show them the nice Pareto charts to show, okay, here's where you need to focus on to drive improvements. It was great. She showed it to some internal stakeholders. They said, hey, this is great. Let's show it to one of our industry voices, right? She sets up a demo. At the end of the call, the question is, how soon can I have this? This was a prototype. This isn't finished software, but it looked done, right? Our risk is we can't just ship that, right? It does have to go back to engineering and be polished, but I didn't need an engineer and to wait for our approved backlog for this idea to be tested. It was a game changer. And we've shipped that feature now. It's like our flagship feature for that product for the year. So this was a real game changer that helped elevate the business analyst role. Now, not only do we do prototypes, but my business analysts will take defects and enhancements, like small enhancements that we know are going to be successful, and they'll delegate to Devin, and we'll solve these problems without needing to take engineers' time up front. It goes to them for code review, and it follows through to QA and follow those processes, but we're getting more done because we have a second path that some of these things can take. So that was really the game changer, setting up the templates, giving some education on how these things work, and letting them run with it to solve the problems. The meta problem that I talked about was one of the biggest game changers to help the business analysts out. One of the things that AI, that we talked about, is fundamentally great at is teaching. And it's not always right, but our teachers in school weren't always right either. So one of the things that I've helped a lot of people understand is if you're stuck, ask the LLM how to get unstuck. how do you, if you're having problems where your prompt isn't giving you the result, describe what you wanted and ask it how to improve the prompt to get that result you wanted quicker next time. If the same mistake's happening, how do I avoid this mistake? Having these kind of more meta level conversations in that conversation thread has really been a game changer for people who are self-motivated to want to improve. So I think that's one of the coolest things that I've learned with LLMs and AI that's really helped us grow in all of the roles across the team. From the pitfalls for a business analyst is technically correct is not always correct. Especially when business analysts are writing requirements, it's really easy to get what looks like a very polished final result that isn't what we actually need for our customers, right? So it just like if you get a lot of code, that PR is hard. The same thing comes in with our requirements documents a lot of times. So keeping things concise initially so that you can vet out the work and working iteratively is a lot better than just getting a 3,000 word document then that you've got to try to review. Fabricated requirements with invented scope, those are just an ever-present risk with AI. We still require traceability. AI helps with it a lot, but it's also good to have a human in the loop with traceability. Kind of the moral that I've tried to teach is that AI drafts it, but we always have a person in the loop to validate and own the result. On our QA side of things, this has been a steady progression, but it's not quite spectacular yet. This is really an area that we've got more work to do on to try to catch up. But some really amazing work has been done on my team to generate our test scripts in Azure DevOps. The QA team records all of their test steps to help them with test execution. It's a very laborious process, but as an engineer, when something's wrong, to see where it fails, it's huge.
What do you mean by records, like video record? Or?
Well, text. So these are just enumerated list of steps in Azure DevOps. And as QA tests, it's great because they can just check off pass, 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 fail, and then they can put in a screenshot or a video to show where it's failing. But that takes a whole lot of time. So we've found a huge win in connecting Devin to Azure DevOps through API connection. And Devin can take from a user, just written out these are the steps to do this, or even just orated with the voice to text, and then it'll go put the steps in. And it's a huge time saver. I mean, probably half a QA's time prior to AI was going just to documentation. We've turned a lot of that into actual hands-on testing now. So that's been the huge win that we've found. We are trying to push more towards AI-assisted testing, where AI can either help with our automation code for testing. That's one place that it definitely has expedited, but also just pushing more towards letting AI explore the software and test features. We're not quite there. There's another team at the company for doing internal software that's a little bit more ahead of my team, that they've done some really awesome stuff to try to bring more automation. And so we have a little bit of work to do there, but it's an interesting area to continue moving on. And if I have any great progress on that, maybe there'll be a future talk. For QA, the pitfalls are really looking at the holistic picture of what we're doing and what the risks are and making sure that they're there. Just like bad unit tests, bad manual tests don't tell us anything, right? So green check marks aren't always worth a whole heck of a lot. We also, worry about atrophy of the human in the loop, just like the other roles. QA should be, in my mind, one of the most in tune with the problem to be solved, because they've got the final say to say whether we've met it or not. If we get too complacent, we lose some of that edge. So the triviality as well of the test cases is a major concern that we've got to keep a human in the loop watching for. And it kind of goes down to just garbage in, garbage amplified with AI. We used to say garbage in, garbage out. We're going to magnify the garbage with AI if we're not careful. We've seen this, this year on a couple cases where we pushed a little bit harder than we should have, and things got a little bit slippery on us. So it can happen anywhere in the process, and especially if we worry about vague tickets or ambiguous things, just like when you're reviewing that as a human, as an engineer, each step of the way that ambiguity is just going to compound. So it's been very important to make sure that we've got a human reviewing these things, whether that's the requirements, the code, or the tests that AI tested. I had that asterisk that I alluded to earlier. The thing that matters to us more than the tools has really been how we've approached adoption. So this is where I really wanted to talk in this talk. So I thought a lot about how we approach adoption, and it kind of comes back to the different place that each person is. We talked about early adopters. You guys in this room are probably early adopters, right? You're taking your own time, you're motivated, and you want to learn. You really don't need someone driving you because you're going to be self-driven, and that's great. Not everybody on a team is going to be an early adopter, and so what does that leave us with? Well, my personal favorite is the skeptics. This has been one of the most interesting things in the AI journey is the individuals who say, AI is going to take our jobs, or AI will never do as well as we can do, etc. So the way that I've approached that with my team is to say, okay, here's your chance to prove that your position on this is right. So take some time and use Devin, use Codex, use Claude Code, and try this out. Show me that it won't work. There was a really interesting case of an engineer who was a skeptic, and so I said, look, just try to have AI help you with this task. It was a really gnarly piece of spaghetti code. It was going to take him 2 days to just weed through it, just to figure out what it's doing. And I said, you know what? Have AI, just send AI after it and see what it does. And if you spend a day and it makes no progress, that's fine. I'll pull a story out of the sprint, right? No harm, no foul. We'll just know then that it's not going to work well. I was actually at that same conference that I mentioned with the business analyst when I checked in with him. And he's like, well, actually, it refactored the whole feature. I'm like, okay, great. Now, it turns out there was some CSS styling issues that took a little more time to work out, but something that was just going to take him an estimated 2 days to figure out the logic of this thing. AI just went and worked in the background, figured it out, and built a new version. This was an MVC app, so it built new views, reorganized things so that the controller wasn't 3,000 lines long or whatever it was, and it mostly worked. We sent it to QA. It had a couple bugs, but you know what? The chances are that trying to fix that in that spaghetti code, not only would it have had bugs the first time, it probably would have had bugs a second time and a third time, just because you're reaching into something that you can't understand all at once. So that was a great way to have the engineering skeptic, right, take an experience at this. And it's not to gloat or anything, but it's to find where this helps us. And it wasn't a complete success because of the CSS issues, because of the couple bugs, but we got the feature rewrote, and now we can maintain it next time. So that was a huge win there. Our mainstream adopters are the folks that they're going to take what you all as early adopters do and use that as their playbook. These are folks who will do a good job, but they're not going to be the ones who are writing the procedures for things. So I want to encourage everybody here as an early adopter to help guide your teammates who may not be the best at proceduralizing or figuring things out. You've got a great level of influence where you, having figured some of these things out, can help them learn and try new things, as well as giving them the procedures that help make it work. Adoption isn't something that just happens. It's a big lesson that I've learned through this entire quest. Here's a number of things that there's probably more than this, but these are the ones that came to mind of practices that I put in place with my team to try to help foster adoption. One of the most productive things that I've found are Friday office hours. Just 30 minutes on the calendar. Come if you want. You don't have to come. It's not a required meeting. But bring a problem, share a lesson learned, show something off cool. I've opened this up beyond my team to pretty much anybody in the company that wants to come. And we've had a lot of really interesting ideas that have come up and had even cross-team collaboration on some of like the QA things we've done, on some of the engineering things we've done. So if there's one thing you want to take away tonight, some of these ideas I think were, the really interesting things. Team member demos we're all probably used to. Those can be a little bit fraught with peril, but in a safe space with, a $10 kind of gift card or something to incentivize it has been a really great way to get engineers who maybe would sit quietly and show things off. Our QA team, as well, trying to encourage some of that, try something and show it. Even if it's a failure, we now will all know that that didn't work for next time instead of having to learn that lesson on our own. We've also tried to make AI adoption a topic in our one-on-ones that my managers and I have with our team members. It's not a performance measure, but it's like, is AI working for you? Are you running out of credits? Do you need more credits? What can help you make this successful? Where are you on that adoption, ladder that we painted? We also, in our sprint retros, ask how effective AI was. And we actually have tags that we'll put on our stories. So if somebody's working on a story and AI was really great at it, they throw an AI win tag on it. If AI cost them because they had to do it and redo it, they throw an AI loss tag on it. So kind of in our retro, then we can take a look. And, we start to see the patterns, right, that can inform that. And, we don't always dig into that, but sometimes we can ask the question, like, okay, why did that particular story not work well for AI? And sometimes it's because it didn't follow the conventions. Sometimes it's because we didn't prompt it well. Sometimes it's hard to say. But we're starting to collect that data. And, the really great thing for me and my managers is we're using AI then to just point it at Azure DevOps and say, find these things, come up with patterns, give us ideas. So, managers are even helping with this AI adoption by having a little bit more time, and AI is great at trying to find those patterns for us. I mentioned the Mission Impossible. I think that was a really cool idea that, I shared one win with, but there were several that came out of that. So something like that where, it becomes an interesting challenge for the team, and, not required, but gives everybody a chance to try something was really powerful. We'll also have to talk about measurement. This is one we've racked our brains with in terms of how do we measure how well AI is or isn't working for us. I would absolutely say things like lines of code generated, percentage of code AI written, seat counts, license utilization, session prompt count, all those are noise. Those aren't going to tell you whether it's good or bad. They're just going to tell you, are you doing the thing? And so the answer for us is, yeah, we're doing the thing, right? These were questions that were like day one, once we checked them. I didn't need to pay attention to them anymore. Things that I'm looking at that I would consider signal are, what does our cycle time look like? I mentioned, that we have a little bit of disparity between engineering and QA. So one of the things that's interesting is I'm seeing cycle time grow. I got to dig in and figure out why. And it turns out the first part of the team, the first part of the effort of writing the code is going so much faster, but the second part of verifying it is not keeping up. So that's an interesting one. Bug and defect rate has been important. Our defect rate has gone up, but our net production that we're doing has gone up far more. So I can contend with that. If you just look year over year numbers at defect rate and see it go up, it'll be alarming. But when you look and say how much more we've produced, right, it's not quite as scary of a story because there's just a natural curse of sometimes we're going to be wrong. And throughput's interesting. You want to make sure that you're making progress. So we monitor, just generally, are we getting work done and are we getting it done faster? The other one that's interesting is if we took it away, would people riot? We're at a point where absolutely, when Claude goes down on a day, Teams blows up, right? It's like, it's not that we can't function, it's that our expectations have been leveled up for what we can get done. And when we can't accomplish that level of work, we all feel it, right? We know that, it'd be like somebody taking away your favorite IDE and telling you just to work in Windows Notepad, right? Like, you've lost the ability to have the value that you can bring. The other part that has been huge is when people complain about things in their workflow. It's like, okay, let's find out how we can use AI to help with this. So developers, anything that's boilerplate and documentation-wise, AI has been a huge win. That's been a big sell for us, right? If we can just start by focusing on those areas, now developers' time is more productive. Business analysts staring at a blank page. It's hard to do the first draft of anything. So having AI help with the first draft has been a huge help to get them focused on, instead of the words on the page, the problem we're solving. And similar on the QA side, right? Never starting from a blank test plan. Taking something AI generated and revising is a lot more productive and enjoyable. And the biggest thing is to try to reduce pain while you're teaching your team a new skill. I think it's a huge adoption win. And building the workflow is just essential, because if everybody's doing their own thing, it's not scalable. So trying to build out your team's workflows in a way that are repeatable. So whether that's shared skill libraries, making sure that our patterns, how we use each tool, is important, and making sure that your definition is done for AI output, I think, is essential on your workflow. So very clear gate to say, this is what you have to do before you can move this on to someone else, because no one wants everybody throwing garbage over the wall, right, to the next person in the team. And I think that this is evolving because the tools are evolving very quickly. So one of the challenges that I expect we're all going to face is just how to evolve with what we build in our workflows. And then jumping back to the guardrails. It's something that's a real thing, and we don't want to think about it sometimes because we just want to do what we need to do. But having guardrails in place makes sure that what you're doing, what your team's doing, is never going to get called cowboy. People aren't going to end up, getting fired over what they're doing. Data and privacy are an important thing that we all think about, even as we were standing out there, right, thinking about what OpenAI and Anthropic are doing is a challenge for us, and each team can decide on their own with their company's guidance. But our rules are pretty simple. Like, we can only use approved tools. There's a process to get them approved. That's important. If you say only use approved tools and there's no way to do it, you're back to no touching, right, that I had earlier, right? You're stuck. So making sure that everyone knows that they can only use approved tools. Focus on getting enterprise agreements if you can, so that your data is not training a model. That's sometimes easier said than done. It depends on your organization and your purchasing model and things like that. But if you can do it, it gives you a level of safety and certainty that you're not going to get on an individual plan. Know your data classification. Who here works in a regulated industry? Finance or health or anything? Yeah. So those kind of things are important to pay attention to, right? So putting production customer data into AI is probably not a good move. And so having that rule defined and everybody know it is important. And the structured trials was a good thing that we put in place, where there was a mechanism that you could say, I want this tool, and here's a formal way. Formal doesn't mean hard, but here are the things that you've got to walk through with it to make sure that it's going to be good to go. Obviously, using unvetted tools, throwing company data in there, putting secrets and credentials into prompts, those things are no-nos for us. We don't want those to happen. We are going to be getting some AI detection and response software that's going to monitor what people are prompting. That's a little bit, next year budget kind of thing that cybersecurity wants to do. But until then, we're really reliant on every individual to do the right thing, and more importantly, to know what the right thing is. We've gone through waves of how we educate a clear message. We've actually, I'm not going to show it because it's company proprietary data, but we've settled on a 4-tier, very clear risk guidance that anybody in the company can follow. So giving things like, for example, if you're using it for your personal use and not for the team, it can be considered low as long as it doesn't have access to certain data. If you're using it on a team, it automatically moves up a level. If you're accessing restricted data, it moves up yet another level. And if you're accessing very confidential data or it's involved in decision making, it's considered a critical tier. And each of those then has clear guidance on what you have to do in order to be able to do that thing that you want to do. IP and licensing is something that we've struggled with a little bit to make sure that we understand both the code provenance. Like, are these suggestions copyright code that we're going to have to worry about getting sued for in 3 years? Like, these are like, Stack Overflow era, you don't know what you're copying and pasting. So it's now just automatic and in your workflow that you don't know where that code's coming from. Are we pulling packages in that are like GPL licensed and we're going to have to like open source our whole product? That would be a bad move if we had to give our source code away, right? Because we used a package with a bad license. And then, there's still questions about ownership of AI output, right? If you don't have that agreement from that AI provider you're using, they could claim your work potentially. So checking that box and, having those kind of considerations in place are just one of many steps along the way that we had to think about. Same thing as, as I thought about, you noticed my memes, I've got a little disclaimer down here attributing ownership. It's real consideration that you have to put in place. One of the biggest things is just to treat AI outputs as untrusted inputs. We worry about prompt injection. So if we're pulling in content that gets fed into the prompts, whether that's from SharePoint or whether that's from markdown files we're writing, all of that is going into those prompts. And, the treasure trove of what's on SharePoint is unknown. It's a giant repository of stuff. If somebody, is the next wave of disgruntled employee laying landmines of prompt injection on SharePoint?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very possible, right? I'm not giving ideas away here. I'm telling you how to protect. So, those kind of things are real things that, we want to make sure that our agents that are working on the code don't have unfettered access to things we can't control, right? Trying to segregate that a little bit where we're just using Microsoft M365 Copilot for SharePoint and leaving that out of our code agents for now. Secrets, whether that's your API key for Anthropic or whether that's your production database password, this is something that I think is often overlooked, and maybe that's a good next topic I can talk about, is how to protect secrets, whether that's your developer machine keys or what. It's a very real concern once you have an agent running on your machine that can do lots of things you may not be watching. So I think secret hygiene has gotten a little bit more of my worry because we're using these agents. And, again, review PRs like they're from an untrusted source, right? Make sure there's a human in the loop of everything. And the package supply chain, it's the package squatting, the malicious attacks with packages. When you've got AI picking the packages, this is an even bigger problem. So watch out for that. And then, the other real risk is just cost overruns and sprawl of your code. Yes, one of the products uses VB6, and it's interesting. There's some cost arguments that are very easy. I've got contractors working on VB6 stuff. Very easy to say that I can save an hour at a time, and it'll pay for a week of their usage, maybe a month of their usage. So let's just give it to them. That's an easy cost argument. We don't want that kind of conversation getting in the way of doing something that makes sense. But we also have to watch out that we're not overspending. Other risks that we've talked a little bit about, but skill atrophy. I really worry about this. I worry about this for myself, right? Am I getting lazy? Am I not thinking as well as I used to because I'm so dependent on AI? I have a success case with our summer intern has been great at using AI to learn, so I have hope for the future. Over trusting output, right? You just getting complacent. It's just such a huge risk that's bit us a couple times. You got to watch out for it. You can't let your guard down. The looks good to me PR reviews are even more dangerous in the era of AI. And we've got tech debt at record speed now if we're not careful, right? Like, yes, it can refactor code, but if you aren't giving it your standards and specs, there's just no telling how quick you can accumulate a lot of really bad code. So none of this is saying we shouldn't adopt AI. This is just saying these are things to watch out for. And then the takeaway that I really wanted is to give a couple ideas of one thing that you can try tomorrow morning to help your team members, colleagues, or yourself with AI adoption. So, just encourage developers or anybody really, pick a boring and annoying task and try to use AI. It's Friday morning tomorrow. We can spend a little bit of time. Nobody's going to mind if we're trying to improve something. But if we can delegate that to AI and put our effort to something better next Friday morning, isn't that going to be awesome? Our business analysts should run their requirements through AI if they're not. Treat AI like a first draft writer. Become an editor. It's so much more powerful to, if you can do that well, to get stuff done. The QA side, generate test cases for a story. It might be off the wall, but maybe that's just the kind of test that you actually need to make sure that it works good. And then anybody that's in a leadership role, the lightweight AI review path or trial path, I think is huge. Giving people guidance of what they have to do the right thing just makes it so much easier. And with that, that's my talk. Hope it was interesting. A little bit off the beaten path, perhaps.
Very good.
Questions?
What's AI?
Great question.
It's just a bunch of if-thens that.
Got it, yeah.
Should have had a competition. How many times do I say AI? And whoever gets closest would. I'm not going to have AI listen for it to count for us.
Yeah.
That would be a terrible drinking
We
game.
cannot have a drinking game for that.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
We tried some of this stuff. Actually,
Mhm.
if you pop that last one back up there.
Which,
Just your last slide, sorry.
let's see if I can do this here. Oh, come on. Play from here.
Because it had your nice forward.
Yeah, let me,
There.
Hey.
So we wrote our project where we tried probably too many things at once, but like 3 of the 4 boxes: devs, business, QA. And we had folks who, from the business side, we were trying to create the next 18 months worth of work. That didn't work out so well. The developers, you had made the joke about if you take it away, will they riot? When it goes down, there's wailing and gnashing of teeth in the streets. We had that too, but it was almost like folks had forgotten just how they used to code 2 years ago.
yeah.
Like, oh, well, I can't do this story because we don't have AI. Yes, you can. You just be a little slower. Like,
Yeah,
do it.
that atrophy is like a very real human response, it seems, and it's happening quickly.
Mhm. We also had an issue where we were developing PR comments so long. It would take,
Yes.
take an hour to read through them.
Yeah.
And then so I would write code, person B would code review it,
Mm-hmm.
AI, generate, a list of things. And then I would then run my AI through it, and it would say 3 of those are false.
Yeah.
So then we had like this AI disagreeing with each other. We're using the same harness, we're probably using different models. How do we prevent things like that?
Yep.
What you described, I would actually enjoy working. But I've not seen that in practice.
So, taking a couple of those things, that generating a year and a half of work, they need to pull in some product management schools of thoughts into their prompts, right? Like, this is, I would argue that that's one where the core practice of the work might be missing, that, we need customer feedback in this cycle type situation. AI is great. It can empower faster feedback, right? Instead of having them write stories out a year in advance, tell them to go prototype some of them, like my business analyst did, and actually test them to make sure that they're right. That'll slow them down a little bit. That would be my path there. The PR comment is one that we absolutely have dealt with, and it has taken a different response depending on the individual. There's some folks who, even after being coached not to do that, continued to do it, and that's a little bit harder to deal with because at some point we're like very close to saying you cannot have AI write the PR comment, that you have to write it. We never pushed it that far, but getting people to understand a little bit of empathy. If you got this wall of text, how would you feel about it, right?
I throw it into AI to summarize it for me.
Well, and we've had performance management with AI, right? I haven't talked about it. It's not a glamorous thing to talk about, but when folks want to depend only on AI and they don't want to bring their thinking to the table, my honest question is, why do I need you here then? If AI can just do it and all you're doing is what AI is doing, I can cut you out of this loop. And nobody wants to be told they can be cut out of the loop. It's a very candid and direct conversation that may change behavior. It may not be how far you want to go with that, but absolutely a conversation that has happened and will probably happen again in the future, I'm expecting, right? It's there's almost a level of, some people don't seem to want to think, they would rather outsource their thinking. That's maybe not what we want on our teams, right? And that it becomes dangerous with AI. So that is a little bit of a place where I think just performance management, once the team has kind of their team contract of this is what we want to do for our workflow, when people are violating that, it really causes problems. And as a team leader, whoever the team leader is, it almost becomes their responsibility to deal with that and deal with it quickly. It's not easy, but it kind of goes some of those people management routes in my mind. There was something else in there that you said. The AI's fighting with each other. So one of the interesting things that we do is right now the only way we actually use GitHub Copilot is in our PR reviews. So we kind of have our Claude Code or Codex or Devin make the PR, and then we have GitHub Copilot does the first pass code review, right? Just a very quick way to look for our conventions. Making sure that the instructions for the agent are pretty clear on what you want it to pay attention to and what you're willing to give up, right? Because one of my opinions is I'm relenting a little bit on code quality, right? We can produce so much more code. Is it important? How important is it now that we got a machine reading and writing a lot of the code that it be, picture perfect? I care a lot about reliability, resilience. It's following our patterns. I'll give up a little bit on some of the nitpicky stuff these days because it just, AI's writing and reading most of the code anyways. So we've worked to try to tune like the Copilot instruction files, markdown files with how we want it to review it to try to filter out some of the noise it's generating. And then we want people reviewing the comments then, right? You take that comment and go back and delegate and decide. If we just let the AI talk to the other AI, I think we're just going to end up with a big bill and not a good amount of productivity. So that's a good place where we've gone back to trying to bring the human more back into the loop, is reviewing those items then from that first pass PR check. It's not perfect, and there's definitely more time spent reviewing code now than there was before. It's a good thing, but at the same time, it can burn us out. So it'll be interesting to see how it evolves in the next few months and years, but it's absolutely something. And just to tell a story on that, where kind of letting everything go too quickly, kind of towards the spring of this year, we've had, business analysts embracing and learning their side, maybe not with the best requirements. Engineers over embracing AI, implementing maybe not the best requirements, and QAs maybe over trusting the testing. And we had a little bit of a defect blip that we aren't proud of, but it was a lesson learned for us. So I think that as long as the team understands what they're trying to shoot for in terms of reliability, quality, and efficiency, there's a level through your retrospectives to reflect on that and tune that. But definitely making sure your instructions for your agents that are doing the code reviews are clear and they have the guidelines of how you want them to do it has been a really good place to try to trim down some of the noise in the PRs for us. It's still there, definitely still there.
So question, can you talk a little bit more about the business analyst role, like how you're kind of structuring that team and the tools they're using a little bit and getting their output to the development?
Yeah.
So they can do, the devs can do their.
Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't seem that complicated to me, I guess. So I'll try to explain it, and if it's not clear, let me know. But so traditionally, what we're doing on our team is that our business analysts are kind of responsible for the stories, getting them ready before our sprint grooming, right, our pre-planning session. So the business analysts are either doing one of two things, depending on the type of work. They're either taking a ticket from our support team that's from a customer, like a defect or a minor improvement, and they're basically vetting that, checking that. We have our product lifecycle manager sign off that, yes, we want to make this change. The business analysts are responsible for making sure they understand kind of what we need from an acceptance criteria and making a proposed solution in that story. Those are generally pretty easy because they're small things. They don't take a great deal of work. But it's the business analyst's responsibility to get that story from a PLM, yes, let's do it, ready for sprint pre-planning. So depending on that story, they're most likely using Devin to say, let's review this story, and that will kind of give a first pass of like, hey, here's what we think needs to happen in terms of what the ACs need to be, what the proposed solution needs to be. If there's a mock-up, then they'll drive getting that mock-up generated with, sometimes ChatGPT, sometimes Devin. But it's still very much so a human guiding AI to do some of that work. The other type of work that they do is more of our roadmap work where they're bigger projects. So this could be like building a large new feature or something that's going to take, it's going to be more like an epic in our workload. That is a little bit of bigger effort on the business analyst to meet with different stakeholders, maybe meet with customers, etc. And then they're largely working, through like a document initially. So they'll use, one business analyst likes to use ChatGPT, the other using Copilot and Devin. So there's still a little bit of difference in their workflow in just terms of tool preference. But generally we're working like in a Word document type setup initially to make sure we get customer problem statements and those type of details. And that's easier to send off and get validated, get sign off on it, etc. But then generally it's going to one of the AI tools and saying, let's start stories for this. And really asking AI to recommend how to break down the stories and kind of having, for example, Devin or ChatGPT connect through either the API or the MCP server to just get the first draft of the stories in there. Because again, that kind of grunt work of like writing the stories, traditionally that just takes, a lot of time that we can now have AI help with. So, I mean, hopefully that was helpful.
Did you put in like kind of share, you mentioned the skills, sort of sharing of skills in like a skills repository or something?
Yeah.
Are the VAs and dev kind of sharing some of those skills out? You
Yeah.
have a certain structure you want your stories in, so you get more predictability.
So in our Azure DevOps, we use the wiki feature to kind of have the per project documentation and standards. So we'll have kind of those details in Azure DevOps, and then AI can read those.
Pointing at that. So
Yeah. So that's where our code standards are, things like that. We have talked about so we use GitHub and we use Azure DevOps. It would be kind of better if we just had our source control in Azure DevOps maybe, but we've got this ongoing debate of, should we move some of this content from the wiki into the repo? The downside is that not everybody can read from the repo as easily.
Yep.
The positive side is that all the AIs that have access to the repo have access to that content.
And it can be hit by embeddings if you're using something like Cursor or whatever.
Exactly. So that's kind of a working thing that we're thinking about, right? Is what makes sense to have in the repo versus what makes sense to have in the wiki. But a lot of things like our code standards are, how to build the software, how to get started if you're a first day dev on the job, or like that kind of stuff, largely lives in the Azure DevOps wiki. And so that's where we would have things like our standards and our workflows and stuff on the per project basis. But we're also working on kind of from a pure skill sharing, trying to figure out better ways to do that. So creating like a central repo that people can push the skills up to, pull them down and use them. So it might have been this meetup, somebody mentioned that you can kind of register. I think it was our lightning talks. So we need to get that marketplace going. We haven't gotten that far yet, but it's high on my list of something I want us to do. And then we've got Teams channels where people are just dropping in Markdown files like, hey, try this out. So we can do better there. That's a new frontier for us. Somebody else had a question.
How wide do you think those skills would share across the team? Are BAs pulling them into, or other roles pulling them in, other than just developers?
Well, we have multiple software engineering teams in the organization. So I lead our commercial software, but we have enterprise software, and then we have kind of patient and provider-facing software that's not commercialized. So we're doing a lot of sharing between the different engineering teams. So, for example, if somebody on, one of my colleagues' teams creates a way, a skill for navigating something within the company, or, from a QA perspective, or, one of those things, we're just all trying to level this up together, kind of in parallel paths. So sharing along those lines, as well as, between people on the individual team.
Thank you.
Other questions? Well, I hope this was an interesting talk, a little bit less technical, but a necessary evil to navigate using the technology, right? Thank you so much for your time.